Hello, gorgeous. Do you think you can hear the difference between TAL's new recreation of the Roland Alpha Juno versus the real hardware from 1985? So, here is example A, and I want you guys to post in the comments or the chat down below here whether you think it is A or B. Okay, that was example A. This is example B. I'm gonna give it to you one more time. Example A. And example B. Super interesting. So I'm going to give you guys just a couple of seconds more to answer. And in the meantime, I'm going to explain what we're going to accomplish in this live stream. So tonight, welcome to the stream. We're going to be comparing TAL's new Pha plugin, which is a recreation of the Roland Alpha Juno 2 from 1985, a very famous piece of hardware that up until this point has had no good software recreation, and it's a legendary synthesizer, so it's so exciting to have it. And then, of course, I have the actual hardware right in front of me, and we're going to go really in depth. So there's going to be some people who just want me to play the fucking presets, right? Pick someone else's video. That's not what this stream's going to be about. The stream's going to be about comparing the two and looking at the functionality, because one of the coolest things, for me anyways, I don't think most people will use this feature, but TAL-Pha is not just a VST plugin. It's actually a controller plugin as well. So what you were hearing was a modified patch called BassPad from the library inside of TAL-Pha that I tweaked and sent the SysX out to the hardware. And so you can also use this plugin as a hardware controller, which is super great because, as you can see, the Roland Alpha Juno 2 does not have any of the knobs and faders from its progenitors. It is on its own, kind of hard to program. And so this is a wonderful plugin, but it is also a super cool controller. So we're going to dig into the oscillators, the filters. We're going to get all the way in there tonight. And I am very, very excited to hear what you guys see. Kev Human says he'd like to hear it against the Boutique. I'm not aware that there is a Boutique version of the Alpha Juno. I want to see real quick what it is. And it looks like 75% of you said it was B. And so I would like to have a quick cheers here to everybody who voted B, because B is in fact that motherfucker. So cheers to you guys. But I'd like to ask you the question. I mean, when I did this comparison, I was shocked. And I want to say too, I used the plugin to program the hardware. I felt like the giveaway might have been a little bit in the envelopes. They could have been tuned a little differently, but I didn't want to just go into the hardware and cheat it. I actually just used the software. Yes. Romex King, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Yeah, Pliskin says, yes, almost identical. So this is as easy as this is. As long as you have SysX here enabled on your hardware, if you have it, you just go to MIDI and go to MIDI exclusive and make sure that's on and not off. And now I'm using a DAW like Reaper that lets you send out SysX, and that's it. It's as simple as now we're listening to the Alpha Juno, and you can hear that it is controlling that. There's a little bit of delay because of my setup, but you could tune your setup to be even faster than that and have instant MIDI. I've got a lot going on. I've got lights in the room, my microphone, all of that stuff. So that is a limitation of my setup and not of the plugin, that little bit of delay you're seeing. So why don't we go ahead and pull up a default pad here, patch, and we should have, I'm moving over to TAL-Pha. And by the way, I was using my plugin Inktomi to control that, so I'll just turn that off and... Right, and I just want to make sure I got the levels really good. And then we could go check out the Alpha Juno, and all we have to do here is hit send, and the Alpha Juno should... Yep. And I can volume match now, so we should be able to hear that versus that's the hardware, that's the software. It's really, really close. It is so crazy what they were able to do with this. So I'm very excited. If you can't tell, guys, this is going to be fun. So starting off, why don't we look at the DCO section? So we've got some options here. We have Sawtooth. Why don't we just listen to the Alpha Juno for a second? We've got Sawtooth. Then we have a chopped up saw. I need to turn SysX on here. And now when I make this change, you can hear these much more harmonically complex oscillators going in here. And what's going on is around the time they put this hardware out, they were competing with the Yamaha DX7, which came out 2 years before, and digital was all the rage. Nowadays, we all want analog synths, but back then, digital was the hotness, and people wanted that. So they added these analog oscillators that have much more complex oscillator shapes. And that might sound pretty bad immediately, but if you shave some of that off with that cutoff, the filter, you can get some really great E-piano sounds that the DX7 was known for, all sorts of stuff. And you can see the different shapes here. When I hear that shape in particular, I think it makes great vocally type sounds. We can also turn off and on the sawtooth waves and the square waves here. So we have square waves, right? And let's just check out the plugin real quick, the difference. A little bit of a difference perhaps there. Back to the hardware. It's very close. We've got more of a narrow pulse. We have pulse width modulation. And what's so unique about the Alpha Juno is that you can actually have pulse width modulation on both the sawtooth and the square wave. So here's pulse width modulation on the sawtooth. And pulse width modulation on the square wave. Jumping back to the Alpha Juno, here is square wave pulse width modulation. Sawtooth width modulation. Jumping back to TAL-Pha, sawtooth width modulation. I mean, come on. Versus the hardware. That is just crazy to me. We can have both of them on, and we can adjust this on both and just see if we get any differences. So it's the Alpha Juno. Might be a little bit too loud, so we could turn the envelope down a little bit. And again, I'd like to show you that even though I'm controlling the plugin, that's just automatically working on my hardware. That's both. Here's the software. Todd Phipps, I totally agree. It is crazy how close this is. Dana, welcome to the stream. Rumen, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Sound Author, welcome to the stream. Yeah, it is crazy. Now, if we turn and we're just listening to the square wave, I think we might be able to hear a little bit of a difference. Let me turn the level back up so you can hear. We are listening to the Alpha Juno. We're listening to TAL-Pha. I think the filter's letting through just a little bit more of the sizzle on TAL-Pha. Going back to the Alpha Juno. I'm going to bring the filter down just a little bit and see if that fixes it. And just a little bit more, like to 9 o'clock. That's a little too much. See, it's if there's a difference. Versus on the Alpha Juno. Maybe there's a little bit more low-end warmth. Now, I want to say, too, not all Alpha Junos are going to sound alike. I know that TAL based their plug-in off of an MKS50, which is actually the rack mount version of the Alpha Juno 2. But in theory, they should sound exactly the same. This Alpha Juno has been recently serviced. So, but I mean, I personally do not think I'm hearing any noticeable difference. Here's something you can do on the plug-in that you can't do. You can actually have 2 sawtooths. So you can see that there. And then we can detune those, I believe, here. So that we can actually detune the oscillators. Now in the hardware, what's happening is you have one oscillator, sort of a master oscillator that's being wave shaped and outputting separate wave shapes. And so on the hardware, although you have a sawtooth and a square wave, you don't have truly independent oscillators because they're being derived from the same digital clock source, which is why we say DCO, right? So it's a digital tuning of that oscillator. Aquatic Borealis says, that's too close for me to do a blind test. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could tell. There's a very subtle thing. Ricky, welcome to the stream. How's it going on? But I mean, it's like a quarter, it's like 2.5% of this cutoff here. Isaac, no, I have not. I have a retroactive programmer, which I thought about setting up for this stream and using the retroactive programmer to control the software controlling the hardware, but I just felt like that might be a little bit too much. DJ Crystal Love, welcome to the stream. How's it going, my friend? Cheers to you. I appreciate you always hanging out and supporting. All right, so we can turn off both of those and check out the sub oscillators. So we're listening to the Alpha Juno. Here's the sub oscillator. I think we're listening to the Alpha Juno. Oh, do I need to turn it on? Yeah, the volume here. I believe on the plugin this is fully variable. On the hardware, you just have those 4 values. Jumping over to TAL-Pha. It's identical. I mean, maybe a little bit of a low mids difference. Let me just make sure I'm getting the volumes matched perfectly. I think the Juno is a little bit louder. So that was TAL-Pha, back to the Juno. Again, if anything, TAL-Pha is adding just a little bit of extra sizzle on top. Yes. And Dubstation Zero says, in actuality, all 3, the Alpha Juno 1, MKS50, had different PCB boards. I didn't know that. I watched Espen Kraft's video, and he was saying they're all the same under the hood, but maybe they're not. So that lends itself to being in TAL's favor here because they actually modeled it off of an MKS50. So it could just be the difference we're hearing is the difference between an MKS50 and an Alpha Juno, not the difference between an MKS50 and TAL-Pha, because it sounds freaking incredible. We could drop that an octave, of course. We're listening to the Alpha Juno. Oh, I'm sorry, make that a pulse. So you can make the sub oscillator a pulse, which is pretty crazy. Listening to TAL-Pha. Identical for all intents and purposes. We can make it a more complex pulse. Listening to TAL-Pha. Listening to the Alpha Juno. Yeah, it is crazy. Crazy. How close that is. Listening to the Alpha Juno. Listening to TAL-Pha. Are you fucking kidding me? That is so crazy. So we can turn the sub-osc off and just hear the noise real quick. TAL-Pha. Moving over to the Alpha Juno. A little bit brighter again on TAL-Pha. I'm beginning to think that it might be just the MKS50 as a slightly more open filter. Isaac asks, is the Alpha Juno an analog filter? Crank the res. Oh, we're going to get there. We're going to get there, Isaac. Don't worry. Yes, it is an analog filter, and it's analog oscillators as well. The tuning is digitally controlled, which is why it says DCO, but they are analog oscillators. You'll hear from people time and time again that they're digital oscillators, and they are wrong. They are analog oscillators, or they're at least as analog as a Juno 106. Let me put it that way. So let's go back to just a simple sawtooth wave. That's the Alpha Juno. Moving over to TAL-Pha. This is going to be a hard stream. I guarantee you at some point, I'm going to lose track of whether I'm hearing the Alpha Juno or the plugin because they sound so similar. Immediately, my hat's like off to TAL, but here's where it gets crazy. And I just checked this out a little bit before the stream. So we actually have 3 different filter modes. We're going to start with normal. What normal is, I believe, is the most accurate recreation of the filter in the Alpha Juno. But we have a couple of different modes, and we'll hear the differences. But this is pretty crazy to me. So let's do a filter sweep. Oh, one more thing to do while we're checking out the oscillators. Let's just hear when I play an octave, if we get any slight tuning differences. That's the Alpha Juno. Moving back to TAL-Pha. Let's try clean DCO mode. There seems like there might be just a very subtle, little bit more phasing going on between the oscillators. Again, this is a very old synthesizer. What is it? Almost 40 years old, right? Like, so the chances that this thing is in perfect spec at this point, even though I had it tuned recently, it isn't. It's likely that this synthesizer is slightly out and the plugin is how it should sound. But there does seem to be just a little bitty hint of a difference. So one more time, the Alpha Juno, I'll go up an octave so you guys can hear it maybe a little bit better. Little bit of flangey phasing sound. Whereas I need to add about like 10% detune here. To get some of that in. I don't know if I'm doing that right. I don't know what these different buttons do. So we'll come back to that later and explore that a little bit deeper. But it sounded like we could easily get it just a little bit more out, just so it sounds a little bit more broken. Let's check out the filter. So we're going to do a filter sweep on TAL-Pha first, and you should be able to hear the nature of the filter pretty quickly. You'll notice that it's got a little bit of a resonance type sound to it, even when there's no resonance added. This is the Alpha Juno. one more time, and I won't talk this time. Pretty spot on, but that's not so crazy to think about. Let's increase the resonance to 50%, and we'll do it again, okay? So, Alpha Juno. Close, a little bit of a difference. We could also try clean mode. Back to the Alpha Juno. Alpha Juno, and then we'll try the normal mode again. What are we hearing, guys? I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. The difference between the filter of TAL-Pha versus the hardware. One thing to note, though, is because this is sending MIDI sysx or whatever, the Alpha Juno is like kind of stuttering a little bit. So that's a hardware issue that we're hearing a little bit of some stepping or something. And so that's throwing off the comparison a bit, so they're not identical. I'll do it one more time, starting with the Alpha Juno. To my ears, it sounds like we're getting a little bit more resonance out of the Alpha Juno sooner. Let's go up to 75%, and you'll notice this is one of those filters where you lose a lot of resonance as you crank it. Starting with TAL-Pha this time. I agree, Pliskin. There's a slight difference to the way the cutoffs, scaled the actual cutoff frequency, so you get a slightly different sort of shape to that. It's interesting. Todd says AJ2 filter and res sounds a bit thicker, especially at the upper range of the filter. It'll be interesting to check out. Isaac, I think I can hear the steps more on the AJ. Yes, well, yeah, that's because it's a piece of 1985 technology, so it just doesn't receive sysx well. Let's see here. Let's check out what Todd said and check the higher end of the filter. So I'm going to do just filter sweeps from 50% up. TAL-Pha, by the way. It seems like it's letting a little bit more of the low end through. If we increase the resonance to 100%, don't worry, guys, this is not a fully resonant hardware synthesizer, so it's not going to be as bad as you might think. Starting with the Alpha Juno. It's very interesting. Let's go ahead and use an envelope here. What we'll do is we'll bring time up to, let's go with like that, about 70%, bring level 2 and 3 down, and then just use the envelope here to check this out. So we're listening to TAL-Pha. We can slow that down a little bit, can't we? Maybe not that slow. Oh, here's an interesting thing. The high pass filter might have made a difference here. So we'll make sure that we have the high pass filter all the way down on both synths. Let's bring it down and try it one more time. We'll use the envelopes this time as opposed to me doing it manually. I feel like those MIDI steps might be throwing it off a bit. So Places says, if you told me both came from the same synth, I would believe it. Back to Tal. With the filter cranked and the resonance like that, it is very difficult for me to hear any difference at all. Like this situation we've got going right now between the hardware and the software might be the first time in my life that I really don't think I can hear any meaningful difference. Devastation Zero says, the AJ2 has more sizzle up top and more throaty right before the middle, but I'm not getting the annoying digital resonance with the TAL. Sounds really good. I added a really in there. Parb says the VST sounds linear. Hardware sounds like it has more non-linearities. Jay, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Yes. The envelope 0 position does have a little bit more low frequency presence. Yeah, the high pass filter actually bumps the bass up a little bit. So let's bring the resonance back to 50%, and we'll do another sweep with this and see if we get a difference. So we're listening to the Alpha Juno. Slight difference in the resonance characteristic. Bring it up to, what is that, 75%? Starting with the Alpha Juno again. That is so crazy to me. Again. Liskina asks, do you keep the hardware after this? Yeah, Parbs, there's at 100% they sound virtually identical to my ears. At middle positions, there's a little bit of a difference. Let's bring the resonance all the way down. Just do another test real quick just to see if we get anything. Now that I'm using the envelope here, maybe that'll help a little. that was ending with the Alpha Juno there, right? So if anything, it sounds like the plugin might get to the resonance a little bit quicker. Kev Human asks, can you do the Hoover sound? We will get there, my friend, for sure. I'm hearing very minor differences. Now we do have clean and boost mode. So why don't we bring this up to 100% and just try clean mode out versus the hardware just to see what we get here. So this is the Alpha Juno. So to my ears, I got more oscillator presence that's like less pulled out of the sound with the resonance cranked all the way. And also a little bit of maybe some digital something in there that was, you know, maybe not that difference. Sound Author says the MKS 50 might have a slightly more open filter for sure. It might be that. Let's try it at 75%. So we're listening to TAL-Pha and then we'll go into the Alpha Juno. Let me turn the sub oscillator on too for fun, right? I really don't hear much of a meaningful difference. Let's go back to normal mode. This is TAL-Pha. That was ending on the Alpha Juno. Let's just compare only TAL-Pha versus itself on normal and clean mode. So this is normal mode. So to me, I would always use normal mode. I feel like the resonance on clean mode is too something. I don't know what the word is for it, but it's a little bit more 303 or something where it's, I mean, I know a 303 doesn't open as far as that, but it's more like just got a little bit more of a clinical thing to it. Parb says, got to say the VST is one of the more organic filters I've heard from software, even if it isn't exactly the same as hardware. Sound Author says clean mode has more balls. That is true. Now, if you want balls, the biggest thing that people complained about the Alpha Juno, aside from the lack of hands-on control, they did sell a programmer for this, and you could get a retroactive programmer for this, or just TAL-Pha and program it as I'm doing right now. But one of the things that you can't do with an Alpha Juno is push the filter into full self-oscillation, full resonance. And that has a lot to do with how the IR3109 filter chip works. It's like hard, I guess, to get it to do that, which is why various Roland synthesizers that all use that chip, right, have different values. Now, this synthesizer wasn't even based off of 3109, but what I'm saying is this synth shares the same filter chip as a Roland JX8P. If someone could post in the chat real quick the filter number for that. They didn't even try with those filters. They just let them not be fully self-resonant, which I think sounds great. I'm not the biggest fan of using the filter as an oscillator. I almost never do it. However, we can now do that on TAL-Pha like you can on a Juno 660 or 106. So I think that's a really great feature that they added in. So here's how it sounds. Watch your ears. Mark, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Dubstation Zero says, okay, it sounds really good. Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds pretty crazy how close it sounds to the hardware. So again, just normal mode. This is what you get when you buy an Alpha Juno. Whoa, let's play notes right. Sweden, I agree. They've done it again. It's so close it doesn't really matter. It is pretty crazy how close it really is. So you now have the ability to do those types of sounds and get a couple of sounds you couldn't get on an Alpha Juno with a little bit more of a Juno 106 or Juno 60 style filter. So that's now built in here, which when you think about this synthesizer and how much you can do with it, and how close it sounds to the actual hardware, just the ability to boost the filter when the filter sounds that good, that's kind of worth it alone. Because to me, again, I don't mind the fact that the Alpha Juno can't fully self-resonate, but so many people do. And when you just think that now there is a version of the Alpha Juno that has that full self-oscillation, I mean, it's just crazy. So real quick, because maybe some people will just want to hear this sound, why don't we create a Hoover sound and then we'll go through some more of the stuff going on in the synthesizer. So let's turn the envelope. Let's see here. Let's set the VCA to gate mode on both. Right, so we have no release. It's just on off. That's TAL-Pha. We're listening to the Alpha Juno now. Pretty much identical. And so what we're going to use is the saw width modulation here. And the trick to the sound is really just to use a lot of that saw width modulation. That is the classic Hoover sound. Something around 80-ish% sounds pretty good. Sub-oscillator on. Now we could drop it down actually an octave if we wanted, so we could go. Dubstation there says, what the? Yes, and that is the name of the original patch created by Eric Persing. Right, so that's how that sounds. We'll just do a regular sub-oscillator. We could add some noise in if we wanted. Sounds quite beefy. We have a high-pass filter on both if we want to get that sound, but as you can hear, it's stepped. Right? Now, really the other trick to this sound, well, there's two things that really sell it. So we'll start with the envelope here. What we need to do is increase the envelope amount to the oscillator. So as long any of the switches here in this blue section are affecting the analog oscillator. So let's increase this. By the way, we're listening to the Alpha Juno right now. We'll jump back and forth and compare some of the differences. I was shocked while we were doing the VCF comparison how close the envelopes were, and we didn't even really talk about that for a second. So what we need to do is create a quick attack and a quick fall. Try it up an octave. Maybe not so much, and we'll make that even faster. Let's just see how close TAL-Pha came to that sound just using the same programming, right? Biggest difference is that filter sounds a little bit more open to me, so we could just dial that down a little. Jumping back to the Alpha Juno. Man, I overdid it. It's like such a small amount. So Alpha Juno. That was TAL-Pha you just heard with the slightest cutoff adjustment, right? So, wow. I mean, it's so close. Now the trick, we're going to turn on the chorus. And what's so good about an Alpha Juno is we have a fully adjustable chorus rate. So unlike on a Juno 106 where we're stuck with basically 2 bucket brigade circuits, and you can have 1 or 2 or both on. In this case, we have a fully adjustable chorus that sounds slightly different. So listening to the Alpha Juno. Oh yeah. Now if we increase this quite a bit, it can get really atonal sounding. That's pretty good. Let's increase the pulse width all the way. Let's see what it sounds like if we turn the the square pulse width on too. Oh, that's pretty good. Well, we could Aural Escape. Welcome to the stream, by the way. We could turn on Inktomi, my plugin. That's my free plugin, but that's just for fun there. With the square wave going approaching 0 there, it gets a little bit, you hear that sound. So, you know, maybe not so much for this one. So that was TAL-Pha you just heard. Back to the Juno. I mean, are you not impressed? Back to TAL-Pha. Juno. TAL-Pha. Banquet hall banger. Alpha Juno. It's so hard. I mean, if anything, maybe you just add a little bit of EQ to around 500 hertz, just to give it a little bit more of that low end fatness. So we're listening to TAL-Pha. Alpha Juno. Maybe it's more like 250. I don't know. Let's drop the, let's go back to just like a regular sub oscillator and try again and see if we can hear any differences. So we're listening to the Alpha Juno now. Such a classic sound. Going to TAL-Pha. The only real difference I can hear, oh, I still have boost enabled. Well, it shouldn't matter too much with the resonance all the way down, but it might. I can hear some sort of interesting high-end, I wouldn't say it's noise, but some sort of high-end content in TAL-Pha's chorus that I'm not hearing on the Alpha Juno. But man, does that feel like a nitpick. That feels like such a small... versus on the Alpha Juno. You know what I mean? Like there's just a little, but again, it's probably just a filter difference. So if I open the filter all the way on the Alpha Juno. And let's try it with a darker filter cutoff. We'll add the envelope to the filter as well. And we'll add some resonance too. So we'll try making this Hoover sound and see what a difference we get now that we're making a real sound as opposed to just listening to only the oscillators and the filter. It's a little static. So what I'm going to do is have L3 come up a bit, and we're going to increase the time on time 3 a bit. So what's happening with the 6-stage envelope, I can explain this more in detail if you guys want, but we're just basically having the filter do its usual shape, but instead of staying at that sustain level, it's going to slowly open. And it's going to affect the DCO too. I wasn't thinking about it, but it's going to affect because we're sharing one envelope for both of these, right? That's the Alpha Juno listening to TAL-Pha. I can hear a little bit of a difference in the way that the resonance is not contoured identically. The cutoff is pretty much the resonance. The cutoff's maybe a little, maybe not all the way up would be optimal. And then the resonance isn't identical. Let's try to unboost and see if we get a difference. On the Alpha Juno. You know what's so crazy is boost is actually kind of closer because it's got a little bit more resonance in there. At this 50% resonance mark. That sounds almost identical. So this is the Alpha Juno. TAL-Pha. So let's try 50% on the Alpha Juno, and then we'll do maybe like 60% on TAL-Pha. Yeah, so I mean, for me, For me, the difference is with the cutoff easily less than a 10% difference, and the resonance is less than a 10% or about a 10% difference of the curve. Not when you get to 100%, the resonance is bang on. It's really just in the middle there. You need a little bit more resonance. But that could be this synthesizer, right? There's no reason to assume that this synth has made it almost 40 years, and even though it's been tuned up and stuff, I mean, it's hard to, these are like little trim pots in there, right? You don't really know that you've got it 100% there. I should disable the EQ too while we're doing these, but I mean, it's crazy how close. Oh, man, what a fucking sound. Charlie says the plugin is spot on. I mean, to me, this is pretty crazy. Late Night Sessions, David Martucci. Welcome to the stream. How's it going? Juno DI is a completely digital Juno. The Juno 60, 6, and 106 are kind of the original OG Junos. They're all analog. Alpha Juno came out in 85. It was sort of a new innovation on the Juno architecture. Basically added a lot of features, but because it didn't have the knobs and faders and a fully resonant filter, people didn't like it as much. But it's an awesome synthesizer. It's an awesome vintage synthesizer. It's really cheap to get an Alpha Juno 1 and not that bad to get an Alpha Juno 2. I don't know what they're looking for, but the Juno D, DI, and X are digital Dubstation 0 with the knowledge. TAL-Pha. Alpha. TAL-Pha. I mean, really? Ultimately? Ed from Earth. I am from the Netherlands, or my family is anyways. That's Tal, AJ. Tal, but at 60% resonance. It's like 10% off of my synth, right? Let's go ahead and add some LFO modulation. We'll bring it up to about 50%. Get rid of those alerts. We don't need that on this stream anymore. Let's just get rid of that. Although, thank you for subscribing, Jay. That's TAL-Pha. Let's listen to the Alpha Juno. Very, very similar responses. So the LFO can have a delay, so why don't we add that in, and just for the hell of it, why don't we go for about 75%, right? We'll see how close the delays are. So we're listening to the Alpha Juno. Listening to TAL-Pha. I'm currently not hearing anything that's making me feel like one synth is just crushing it compared to the other. Very subtle differences in the way the resonance is scaled and the maximum cutoff frequency exist, but this is the closest I've ever seen a plugin come. I can say that with full confidence. And to be completely honest with you guys, I think this could replace my Alpha Juno 2. I hate to say that because I love vintage gear. That's what this channel has been built on, is love for this analog circuitry. But I don't know that I can justify, after hearing this, it's so freaking spot on. Like, I don't know. What do you guys think, though? It's more important what you guys think. While we're here, I'm going to turn off the envelope amount to the DCO. So now we just have that sort of sound. And I just want to see how this sample and hold LFO sounds. So let's try. So that's TAL-Pha. Oh, that's oh, you know, I didn't think about it. It's been so long since I've demoed this synth. Does this synthesizer have? I don't think it has other oscillator shapes for the LFO. Sound author, I agree. Parbs, I agree. There's a little bit of a difference, but I thought Arturia's SQ80V was extremely close to the Unsonic SQ80, but I can hear that extra little bit of juiciness on my Insonic SQ80. Again, it could be that my synth is fucked up and it's getting a little bit more distortion in there or whatever, and that's making it sound beautiful. So in this case, we really can't do much. I forgot the Alpha Juno doesn't have those alternative LFO shapes. So just going back to the standard and TAL-Pha. Let's try about 40%. So TAL-Pha. I think that, you know, slight rate difference that doesn't freaking matter. It's crazy, the authenticity here. So what we can do is we can invert the envelopes and we can use velocity to control these. Interestingly, it looks like the graphic is missing here. A little thing that Tal could fix. The graphic is here, but it's not here. There was something else I saw too that I was like, oh, that's slightly interesting. But we can invert the shape here. We get this sort of plucky thing. And that was all Alpha Juno. Moving over to Tal. Like, to me, Tal sounds so analog. Paul, slightly more when the filter's all the way open. I also have a little bit of a scratchy cable. I didn't really notice it till we're, you know, kind of pushing these lows. Right? I mean, it's close. Thanks for subscribing, David. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think that DubStation's got the right idea, which is you could sell the controller and use TAL. I mean, one of the things is I love retroactive hardware, and I think what Rob's done is amazing. I'm worried because this really kind of covers what that hardware does, except for, of course, the fact that it can, that there's not the random patch generator. But let's go ahead and like talk about this. We have all of these different presets here, and you know, by the way, like they're getting cut off on the screen. There's a lot of them. So why don't we just check out a couple of these? So pad blanket. And of course they're using the reverb and delay, right? Which sounds great, but why don't we just turn that off, right? And increase the level here. It's a cool one. We can increase the resonance. Ricky, that's funny. Kev says the Alpha Juno 2 has aftertouch and velocity, right? No other differences other than you also have an extra octave of keys. So you've got 49 keys on an Alpha Juno 2 with no velocity or aftertouch, and you do have velocity and aftertouch and an extra octave of keys on the Juno 2. So here's what's crazy. Hit send on SysX, and we should hear this patch. Sounds like the LFO is... the difference in the LFO is actually... Oh, maybe because it's using this noise LFO, so we can't send that. So let's go ahead and put it back to like a sine wave. Back to TAL. I wonder if it has something to do with the high pass filter, maybe it's getting sent SysX? Could have to do with unison voices also. Sounds pretty close, but sounds like there's some more LFO action going on here, right? Yeah, so it's not perfect. I think it's pretty good, but let's see. Let's go check out an arpeggiator. So let's try one of these out. Oh, I'm listening to the wrong thing. The first one, so TAL. Now, I think if I send this out my express port, I think I'm using port 8. Let's see if that'll work on the Juno. No, because, yeah, so I was just curious if that would actually work. But so we do have an arpeggiator, right? Let's just check out real quick. Let's go pull up a different patch. I want to try something else. Metal Reese. Let's see. Ooh. Ooh. A good patch. So we have some delay here. You can hear that the tone is going up a little bit. We could take that down. Authentic tape effects. If that's your thing. Hashtag dub effects. Sounds pretty good. XP50 player, welcome to the stream. I didn't pull up a Tom's patch. Bill, yeah, Juno 1 doesn't have aftertouch or sensitivity. Neither does the Juno 660 or 106, by the way. Making the Alpha Juno 2, the first Juno to actually have velocity and aftertouch. Again, I don't know why it's so vilified. Other than vintage synth snobs here with their eyes. Can I get some vintage, some scum snobs in the chat? Let's check out the reverb. Wow. Oh, it's... Interestingly, it defaults. So if you click any of these buttons, it'll default to sort of its whatever its position would be. So like if I go to size here, it's interesting that it defaults to different values with the reverb, which is clever. So this is more a bigger size and a slightly darker tone. This is metal. This is... I don't know if you guys can hear that, but this is definitely, I think it's a metal body. I don't know. It's pretty tough. It's a heavy ass synth too. Let's compare that real quick to, of course, my plugin Inktomi here. We could just kind of have this over here real quick. In this mode, we don't have any control over the decay or anything. So you could use this and get a lot more of a modulated amount. I could take the modulation out. Still a difference in sound versus listening to the wet reverb of TAL. Definitely gets more high end. I definitely shot for a darker, more vintage sound, but of course we could just bring the tone down further. That's closer. So yeah, we also have unison voices, so we could increase that. And the unison spread, so... We have aftertouch control. It's evil. So yeah, let's go ahead and check out a couple more. I like this Electric Himalaya patch, or what was it? The factory TAL. So we actually have a lot of sounds that the factory bank A and B that come with the Alpha Juno. So these are pretty close. Steel drum band. Oh yeah, this is the steel drum sound. Did they put what the in here? We got Ooh Scary, which is one of my favorite sounds from the Alpha Juno. It's like a nice little ghost. If we go to the Alpha Juno and we go to, what is it, memory, somewhere in here. Ooh Scary, here we are, 85. This is the Alpha Juno. Not identical, but pretty close. And here's the TAL again. So you can hear there's some differences between the presets. And I think that's probably, again, just based off of little differences in the LFO. Looking at the factory bank too, I'm looking for what the. So if you see it, yell at me. Oh, there it is. It's the next one. So here's the famous Hoover patch that, how did my brain die on that one? That my boy Eric Persing did. Here's what the. And here's how it sounds on the Alpha Juno. Little differences in terms of what is going on with the sound. I felt like there was a little bit more noise. That was the Alpha Juno. TAL-Pha. The envelope's going a little bit further. So that's the original Hoover sound, by the way. It was only modified from here to make all of the Hoover sounds that we're more familiar with. So yeah, we've got the original presets of the Alpha Juno in here, but we also have all these really cool presets. Let's check out some of these guys. Let's get some ARPs going. That one's good. And I mean, if we stop thinking about this as a comparison between the Alpha Juno and this hardware, looks like my lights changed in the background. That's hilarious. I must have, when I pressed the this CCs here was transmitted to my lighting stuff. It still looks cool, but that's very funny. If we stop thinking about this for a second as a recreation of the Alpha Juno, and we just think of it as a plugin on its own, right? We've got some really cool stuff in here. Using the EQ here, right? So if we wanted to get a more authentic sound, we could just turn the EQ off, right? Probably what I would do. Really sounds great. Let's check out some more from Electric Himalaya. Let's check out some bass sounds. One thing I've always thought about the Alpha Juno is when you think of like electro house music, there's like a certain sound to a lot of the bass lines. I'm thinking of like the classic stuff before deadmau5 took over. And I really think the Alpha Juno is like the optimal synth for that because of its sub-architecture and the way it can do these sorts of like pulsy, narrower pulse, weird sounds. Right? Like, doesn't that just have that sound? I'm gonna turn both of these up a little bit while we're checking out these presets. Whoa. Almost getting into a little bit of territory. And this is where you could hear that if you have these brighter waveforms, right? Like how great that can sound. Dark and solid. Some really good bass stuff. Let's go ahead and I'm going to skip past some of the stuff. Let's go check out some keys. Just run through some of these. It's a very beautiful one. I want to increase aftertouch here. Really great. Big PWM keys. That's tickling my fancy. Less cut off. You can see that what the sound designer did here, if you don't want to deal with the 6-stage envelope, if you put L1 and L2 both to 100%, you've basically got the ADSR back. But I don't like that. I want to have some... I like complicated envelopes. Bright digital bells. Ooh, that's beautiful. Now I know that we're not going to get the reverb and delay and everything, but if I go to SysX and send this, we can now swap over to the Alpha Juno and see what we get. Substantially louder. Now, just using this instead of using it as a starting point, but now we're going to use TAL-Pha to tune this sound to my liking. I'm going to bring the high pass filter up a little bit higher. So just by doing a couple of moves, basically what did I do? I brought the level down because it was crushing my preamp, and then brought the high pass filter up a little bit to actually thin the sound out, adjusted the cutoff to taste. Now, if we bring the high pass filter all the way down, it's interesting that it's using pulse width mod. Let's use... use the key falling all the way. It seems like I get some randomness in there. Oh, it might be from the LFO. But I'm not hearing any LFO. That's interesting. Yeah, that's probably a little better. Whoa, that's a bad note. So now we're going more in that E piano territory, right? And again, we're just by setting L1 and L2, we basically have a just a fake ADSR. Which is perfectly fine for this type of sound, right? Could increase the decay a bit. Or increase the cutoff a bit, might actually be better. Turning on my plugin in Tomy. Yeah, just really, really crazy. Dubstation Zero says, apparently the Alpha Junos will respond to Poly Aftertouch as well as the DW8000 and Chroma Polaris. Definitely want to check that out. I know the Chroma Polaris does, although I haven't been able to figure out how to make it work with the SQ80. Yeah, definitely check out Inktomi. It's worth it. It's free too, so you just go to the link in the description. I think it's in the description of this video. I might have taken it out for this one in particular because I wanted to focus people on TAL-Pha. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. We'll just check out a couple more sounds, I suppose. Just so we could say we could. A lead. Sorry, we got to go back to TAL-Pha. You'll hear how it updated. I didn't realize that, but if we go back to the Alpha Juno, it updates automatically, but we just get more differences the more the EQ, delay, and reverb. I wonder if I hit send, if we'll get something a little closer. Yeah, that's pretty close. So that was the Juno, and then we just listened to TAL-Pha. Anyways, just interested in that. I'll turn my reverb off. Ooh. That's a beautiful sound using what appears to be the sawtooth and square wave with the cutoff, just a little bit of resonance. Those types of sounds. Yeah, and by the way, on the topic of price, this thing has an introductory price of $64 as of this video. As the plugin gets older, it'll go after the introductory sale. I think it goes up to 80. I think even at 80, it's a bargain, especially if you do have a piece of vintage history like the Alpha Juno 1 or 2. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That's a really cool patch. I love that it's not using an EQ either. It's just... All right, I want to sysx send that to my Juno, and then we'll move over to that and see how close it is. I think the biggest thing... We're listening to the Juno now. So what I'm seeing is if you like a patch in TAL-Pha, you can send it to your Juno, and with just a couple of quick moves, you can get pretty damn close. I think this is using a like a unison mode, which might I forgot if that's in the Alpha Juno. Can you do a unison? I guess I could just look it up in the parameters real quick, but I don't remember if there's a unison mode or not in the Alpha Juno. Someone knows. I've got too many synthesizers, man. I got too much going on. I think there's a mono mode. I don't know if there's a unison mode. And if you could detune them. So you might be able to get a sound. Again, without a doubt, there's more sounds going on that you could possibly get with TAL-Pha than you can with the Alpha Juno because it removes some of those restrictions. It has the arpeggiator. You can do unison stuff. For me, I kind of hate it when there's unison on a vintage plugin. I understand that like 99.9% of people want it there. For me, I just want it to be pure. I don't even want it on plugins on synths that had unison. I just want that vintage sound, you know. Yeah. Gingy says they could do all of the sounds. Well-rounded DCO Jim. Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm here checking out TAL-Pha, but once again, without a doubt, the Roland Alpha Juno is one of the best vintage synthesizers you can buy. Bang for your buck analog synthesizers. Dubstation says you almost hit Close Encounters sounds. Yes. Oral says, I like the sound of this over my Juno 106. Is that sad? I don't think it's sad. I think you can like both of them. Juno 106 is an incredible analog synth. So iconic in its sounds, but it has a specific thing it does. I do think the Alpha Juno can do a wider range. It probably can't do the Juno stuff as optimally as a Juno 106, but it gets goddamn close. Gerald, welcome to the stream, my friend. No unison in Alpha Juno. Yeah, so that's the difference in that sound there, is we don't have a way to do unison. Zap says TAL sampler is worth the time and money too. I agree with that. Yeah, so I think that's a good place to leave it for tonight. If you guys want me to compare more about this synthesizer in the future, just let me know. I think overall, I'd love to know what you guys think. But I would say overall, this is the closest I've ever seen to a synthesizer that I think could replace my hardware vintage synthesizer. And I've looked at a lot of plugins on this YouTube channel, and I think that TAL's is pretty much right, spot on. By the way, this lead you're hearing in the song right here is my Alpha Juno. I thought it made a really great sort of like almost automaton, vocally guitar lead type sound. What do you guys think? Hans Volt says the 106 was just too simple. Hans is the vintage synth god when it comes to doing some complex stuff. Cheers to TAL, I agree. Can we have a good cheers to TAL? You freaking killed it. I'm just so, and also just personally, it was really awesome that they reached out to me to do this stream, because I think that TAL is like the original, them and Valhalla are like the original companies I think of that started like the indie dev revolution when it comes to plugins. It was the dark ages before that, where you had to buy thousands of dollars worth of Waves plugins to sound good. TAL's always had such incredible stuff for so reasonable. So yeah, I'm glad you are, Todd. Kev says TAL 101 is good. You get the free one without the sequencer too. That's awesome. Oral Escape is sold. Han says, great show. Gingy drops a puppy emoji. Fuck yeah, Gingy. I love that. TAL baseline, yes. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. I hope I did it justice. I hope that everybody really got to see what an incredible piece of audio technology that is. That is the closest I have ever heard to the real thing when it comes to vintage hardware emulations. Like, to me, that is spot freaking on. That is whatever you could ask for in terms of that. And I know like Starsky Carr is going to be excited for this, because he's always wanted an Alpha Juno 2 plugin. And I know there was like the old version of one, but this, I think it's called Dominator, but this one is it. This is the Alpha Juno sound. I think whatever minor differences are there are almost imperceptible once you've tuned them out with just a couple of parameter differences. Virtually identical. And then you've got the expanded feature set with like the arpeggiator, unison. You could have two sawtooths and detune them. I didn't even cover that. Sorry, but it's just, yeah. Let's see. Paul says, normally I go to Soft Tube Model 84 for a lot of the synthwave sounds, but this is well worth the price. I agree. Atmosferasi, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Bill, thank you. Yeah. The Softude stuff's incredible too. I'd say I haven't had a chance to check out any of their plugins on this stream, but they also seem to be setting the standard. Of course, GeForce 2, but when we did the shootout between the GeForce software and my Matrix 6, the Matrix 6, which isn't a fair comparison at all because the software is emulating the OBX, not the Matrix 6. But I think the Matrix 6 sounded really good. And the software sounded really good, but the differences made it where the Matrix 6 sounded good. And it was just a different type of comparison because it wasn't so spot on. So you go, I kind of like this about this one and I like this about that one. With this one, it was just like, I think for all intents and purposes, that's your Alpha Juno in a plugin. And, you know, I don't know. Atmosphere Ferocity asks, have you done Ops 7, DX7 emulation? I haven't actually. I'll have to check that out. So, anyways, guys, thank you for being awesome. Thank you for checking out this live stream. I'm going to put up a video if you're watching this in the future. The video I think is perfect for you. Continue to be excellent, guys, and I will see you next week.